Hi, YouTube. Welcome to Shimmer Girl Talks. Today, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite books. I've read hundreds of books over the years, and some of them, even though I haven't read them in maybe 20 plus years, they still stick with me or resonate with me. Some of them I've even read more than once, and I will acknowledge those books. So let's start off with my all time favorite novel. And I don't know why this one has stuck with me for all of these years. I read it for the first time way back in 1985 or 6. I'm not going to give you my age, but you can kind of guess, but it was a long time ago. And that is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Um, if you're not familiar, she's the orphan who went through hardships and just ugliness from even family members. And she grows up and ends up being a governess for Edward Rochester and his charge, Adele. And, she, despite all of that she went through, she still managed to keep a strong head on her shoulders. And she didn't take no crap off of Edward. And that was ultimately the man that she fell head over heels in love with. But in a sense, even though he was her master, you have to look at the time frame, it's like the 1840s or so. And he was her master, her employer, and he had like 20 good years on her. Yet he met his match with her. She stood up to him, and I loved it. I loved the strength that she had in her character. The next book would be by Charlotte Bronte's sister, Emily Bronte, Wuthering Heights. Now, I really like the book. Heathcliff and Catherine, their love just transcended, all that was possible. And, I read that book twice. I've also read Jane Eyre twice, but I read Wuthering Heights twice. And the first time around, I did not like Heathcliff at all. He was a miserable, hurtful, hateful man. But when you read the book a second time and you see the hardships that came against him, not that that's an excuse for him to be the person that he was, you kind of had some type of sympathy for him. And so the second time around, his character really touched my heart because he was a tortured soul and he was in love with Catherine and he could never have her. Excellent book. Wuthering Heights, Jane Eyre, excellent. Now, the next book on my list, now this is part of a series. And the funny thing is, I read the second part first before I realized it was a series. And that was, every teenage girl knows this, is V.C. Andrews' Flowers in the Attic, Petals on the Wind, and If There Be Thorns. And then the fourth one is Seeds of Yesterday. Now, I've read Flowers in the Attic and Petals on the Wind twice. I have not read those books in many, many years, but those are two books that really stuck with me. Very dark. Um, you know, Catherine, the mother, was just a deplorable human being. Her children should have never existed, and she went out of her way to make sure that they were wiped from the face of this earth. It's an oldie, but a goodie. So if you've never read that series, check it out. The next one would be Interview with a Vampire. I've always been fascinated by vampires. Christopher Lee is my all-time favorite um, actor to play a vampire or Dracula. Interview with a Vampire, very good book. I didn't get a chance to read the follow-up. I think it was The Vampire Lestat. And then there's also another one called Armand, but I never got around to those. But, oh, that's by Anne Rice. Good book, by the way. The next one is The Reluctant Governess. Now, I don't remember too much about that one, and I can't even give you the author's name. Sorry about that. But I read that maybe in my either late teens or early 20s. And I greatly admired that book. I mean, I really liked that book. Not that it was just some great literary piece, but it was just something about it. I just remember, it seems like I remember like a castle and a mountain chalet or something like that. But I like the book. Sorry, I don't have too much information, more information than that. The next one is going to be Tears of Gold by Laurie Mcbain. Don't remember too much about it. Something about a ship and the character losing her virginity to the hero, and you know, I read that book a very long time ago. And just because I don't necessarily remember the ins and outs of it, it doesn't mean that I did not think it was a fabulous book, and it was a good book. Again, that book is Tears of Gold by Laurie Mcbain. The next one is The Girl by Catherine Cookson. Again, and I think I might have read that one twice as well. A lot of the books that I'm telling you about, I probably read them like in my teens and early 20s, and so it's been a long time. But I remember that being a good book. Anne of Green Gables, oldie but a goodie. Love, love, love. And I think I even read Anne of Avonlea, but Anne of Green Gables is the one that stands out to me. And I'm pretty sure that I've seen the movies because there's like a 1934 version and there's a 1985 version. But I've seen those movies before I actually read the book. So I already knew, what was going to happen. And if anyone is not familiar with it, first of all, it's an excellent book for a young girl, a teenage girl. But it follows the story of Anne Shirley and red hair or carrots. Don't call her carrots. And she's an orphan. And I think I have kind of an affinity for like orphans or the underdog, and they, despite the hardships that they've gone through or going through in their lives, they still manage to be strong and, and make it in this, harsh world. And Anne was no different. Lovely story. Love it. The next one is The Color Purple. Now, I saw that movie before I read the book. And the book is much more detailed than the movie, even though the movie is like 3 hours long or something. So it's a long movie. But even in a book, you're going to get a lot more detail. And while I absolutely loved the movie, the book was good, I have to be in the mood to read movies that depict, Black people in horrific situations. The whole purpose of me reading, or, I don't read like I used to, but the whole purpose of me reading back then, it was escapism. It was a chance to leave reality for an hour or two a day, and you get invested in these characters. And so something like The Color Purple, this is something that happened to some of our ancestors for real. Because that whole scene, if you ever saw the movie with Oprah being knocked to the ground by a white man, that was just too much for me. And, and we know that, stuff like this, happened for real. But again, a tale of a strong woman who goes through abuse, but then she makes it out on top. So inspirational woman overcoming all type of story. Good story. And the last one, and it's unfortunate that I used to keep track of all the books that I've read. So I know that I'm missing out on a lot of good books that I'm not mentioning. I used to read a lot of Barbara Cartland and Joan Collins. I've read a lot of books over the years, but the ones that I'm naming are the ones that really stuck with me and struck a chord with me. And so the last one is Midnight Heiress by Kate Federick. And again, don't remember too much about it. Something about a woman on a plantation and, the whole, handsome man that's in love with her, but she doesn't realize it, type books. So if you haven't had a chance to check those books out, check them out and drop me a line. Tell me what you think. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you.